guys, if you're new to Deception Bytes, hit the like and subscribe button and be sure to hit the bell to be notified of future videos. If you wish to support the channel, the links are in the description below. Now, fasten your seatbelt. Here we go. Okay guys, it's Mishel, Deception Bytes, and I'm back, and it is Wednesday, June 26th, and I know what you're going to say. No way is she posting at 4:12 p.m. Eastern Time. I know you're going to say that. I know you are. I know that's what you're thinking. But indeed, my friends, it's true. I know, and the world has not stopped spinning, and it hasn't careened off into the sun. I don't know. It's a new day, I guess. So anyway, there are no Q posts. Getting a little tired of saying that. Wish he'd pop in and say, hey, but he hasn't. So we're going to get into the Q-related news, and we're going to do it early tonight. Woohoo! All right, here we go. I've got about an hour to spend, and so let's get through as much as we can in that hour. In fact, it'll be a little shade less than an hour because I had a little catastrophe. I was starting to record, and of course, Sammy jumped up, knocked everything over, tried to chew the cords. So I do have my handy dandy Acme cat Begone, and it seems to work very well, very well. I know. I'm so high tech here with my Acme cat Begone. All right, let's get into the news. Let's get all up into it. All right, the UN poised to launch global ban on all criticism of Islam. So it doesn't matter, you can criticize Christianity, but God forbid you ever should criticize Islam. Nations belonging to the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, and other governments adhering to Sharia law across the world, including Canada. Yeah, thought I'd throw that in there because we've got something on that coming up. Other governments adhering to Sharia law across the world are ramping up their new campaign with the United Nations to prohibit all speech that Muslims consider offensive. They're, you know what they are? These Muslims that are offended to everything. I mean, pigs offend them. They won't go into a Subway restaurant because they serve bacon. And that's the same for other restaurants. I know in England, they have actually outlawed bacon in many restaurants, which is very unfair to the rest of the people who enjoy a good, bit of bacon. I'm not a bacon fan, but, I'd like it to be there when I want it. So anyway, what was I going to? Oh, yes. What they are what I call WSMs, whining, sniveling, malcontents. That's right. You heard me. WSM, whining, sniveling, malcontents. Islamic nations long have sought a determination from the United Nations that any criticism of Islam or Muslims is Islamic phobia and banned globally. WND reported, noting that with 57 members, the OIC represents the largest voting bloc in the UN, but each time it has come up for a vote, more realistic arguments prevailed, and the campaign was never legitimized. Well, Pakistan putting on the pressure. After UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres unveiled the new UN strategy and plan of action to fight so-called hate speech at a special meeting in the Pact Economic and Social ECOSOC chamber, Pakistan Ambassador Malia Lodhi incited more support to silence any opposition to Islam and its adherents, including speech condemning Islam for its scriptural inciting of terrorists to conduct jihad, holy war on infidels. So, yeah, they want to have this put forth so that if you condemn terrorism in the, that they are committing in the name of jihad, then you are the criminal because you have committed a hate speech crime. Yes, right on cue. There's my cough. I think I will have some iced coffee. Forgive me and excuse me for a moment. Thank you both for excusing me and for forgiving me. Let's go on. An inevitable consequence is to fan the flames of bigotry, intolerance, anti-Muslim hatred, and xenophobia, Lodhi proclaimed before ambassadors, senior diplomats, and high-ranking UN officials, as quoted in a press release, according to MSN. My Prime Minister, Imran Khan, has recently again called for urgent action to counter Islamophobia, which is today the most prevalent expression of racism and hatred against the other. Well, it's not an expression of racism because Islam is not a race. It is an ideology. It is not even a religion. It is an ideology. Coffee didn't work. Guterres said the overarching goal of the UN plan is to identify, prevent, and confront what the UN and Islamic nations consider hate speech. It targets the root cause of hate speech, pointing out that these include tackling violence, marginalization, discrimination, and poverty, as well as bolstering weak state institutions, the top UN official said, according to MSN. The Secretary General stressed that in addition, the new strategy will push for coordinated response that targets and identifies users of hate speech. Guterres said a second objective of the plan is to react to the impact of hate speech on society so that individuals and groups with opposing views come together and sing Kumbaya, utilizing traditional and social media platforms to develop communications guidance. Excuse me. I do apologize. I'm early, but I'm coughing. Not sure what all that is about, but hey, there it is for what it is. Now, isn't that interesting that they want the social media platforms to develop communications guidance to inform us all what is hate speech and what isn't hate speech and how we should behave? Because after all, isn't that their job? No, it isn't. And it never has been. Lodi ramped up her rhetoric to eradicate all opposition to Islam, not to mention criticism it incurs for the violence and carnage resulting from its call for jihad on infidels, that would be you and I, not submitting to the God of Islam, Allah. Well, I only submit to one God, and that is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel, the Israel of old, not Zionist Israel, and the Lord Jesus Christ, his son. That's who I submit to, and I make no bones about that. So if that makes me a hater, then I guess I'm a hater. I really don't hate these people at all because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities of darkness and rulers in high places. And that is what we are battling here, not flesh and blood, but certainly that battle manifests itself in the physical, and that's what we are seeing worldwide right now. So she says, we are fully committed to support the UN strategy on hate speech, the Pakistani ambassador added. This is a moment for all of us to come together to reverse the tide of hate and bigotry that threatens to undermine social solidarity and peaceful coexistence. Well, I'm not exactly sure how you peacefully coexist with a people that want to kill you. They want to rape the women. They want to enslave them, make them sex slaves, or kill them, just outright kill them, and want to kill and behead men. It's hard to peacefully coexist with that, but hey, what do I know? Anyway, it's coming soon, and down here it says, thus far, Twitter has shown a willingness to voluntarily enforce Pakistan's Islamic blasphemy rules, even if the U.S. government doesn't abide by any potential hate speech treaty that could stem from the planned conference. IPT's Jos Rosomando reported this raises the possibility that it and other social media companies might voluntarily follow suggestions from UN bureaucrats to the detriment of free speech. Yeah, well, they're not concerned about free speech. And in fact, none of the social media platforms are concerned with free speech, with perhaps the exclusion of some of the new platforms that appeal to conservatives like Gab and Parler and so forth. So let's, I think we've had enough of that. And let's look at this. Excuse me. I really do apologize. I don't have time to stop this and restart it, so I'm going to try to get through. Breaking: Eric Trump assaulted, reportedly spit on by employee at Chicago bar. Well, isn't that lovely? And that is considered an assault. But, however, I have read recently today that he is not pressing charges. So that is quite magnanimous of him, actually, because he certainly could. President Trump's second son, Eric Trump, was assaulted on Tuesday outside the Avery in Chicago. Marianne Ahern from NBC5 Chicago reported that an employee at the Chicago establishment spit on Eric Trump. And might I say that she was immediately arrested by Secret Service, as well she should have been, which she seemed pretty surprised about. Gee, imagine assaulting someone and then being surprised because you get arrested. Imagine assaulting the president's son and then being surprised that the Secret Service are there to arrest you. Now, he didn't press charges, and as far as I know, she has been released on her own recognizance. And so I don't know what is going to happen with that, but it's interesting nonetheless that this is where we live and how people think. They don't agree with someone. Could she not have engaged him in a conversation? No, because she preferred to spit on him. That is where we are with the left. They don't want to have rational conversation. They can't engage in rational conversation because they don't have enough talking points on their side. So they resort to these kind of, or just plain screaming, as you see in when they're out rioting and so forth, and you try to approach one of them, they just start screaming because they can't engage you in rational conversation. They're not able to. Unbelievable. This is where we are, though. Now, I did love this meme. I love it, and you can't make me not love it. Suspect is a gender fluid assigned male at birth, wearing non-gender specific clothing, born Caucasian, but identifies as a mountain panda. I love this meme because it makes fun of really where we are, seriously. And there's so much truth in that, and that's the power of memes. They're able to get truth across in a way that no other medium does. Memes are wonderful for that, and hard to argue with either, because that's exactly where we are. Identifies as a mountain panda. Yes, well, Sammy self-identifies as a Black Panther. I think in his mind, he sees himself. He loves to be right in front of that mirror, boy, and look at himself. Look at me, how sleek I am, and how powerful my muscles are. He's got this big chest that he pushes out. And I think he says, I am a powerful Black Panther. I do. I think he self-identifies as a Black Panther. He thinks he is one. I don't know how to tell him otherwise. So I just let him think that. Okay. Now, this is good news. Good news for us. You might not think so. It is. Mueller to testify publicly on July 17th. 17th, anyone? Letter Q, 17, following a subpoena. So he has been subpoenaed and he is going to testify. Now, of course, the Democrats think that they have, won this great battle. They're going to get him into court. He's going to testify. But they're going to have to allow cross-examination by the Republicans. And what do you think they're going to bring up? Every hole in the story and why he sat on it for so long. They're going to bring up all sorts of stuff. Glaring holes in this report. Oh, yes, they are. So have no fear. It's coming down. It's coming down. Hang on now.
Of a major move to get more disclosure from the Mueller probe concerning
we can go ahead and listen to this
himself. Manu, thank you for brother for being on Quick Watch like this. What have we learned?
Yeah, major news here involving Robert Mueller, the special counsel, and efforts to get him to testify on Capitol Hill. Just moments ago, the House Intelligence Committee and the House Judiciary Committee announced they have agreed, the special counsels agreed to appear in public on July 17th in an open session to testify about what he found. It was a part of his 2-year investigation into Russian interference as well as potential obstruction of justice in the White House. Now, they say in this letter, both the chairman of this committee, of the House Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, and the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, that they actually have subpoenaed Bob Mueller and that he has agreed to testify under subpoena. Now, what they say in this letter, Chris, is that they said they understand. This is a letter that they wrote to the special counsel, saying that we further understand there are certain sensitivities associated with your open testimony, and they're talking about several criminal investigations that are ongoing, and there are certain things that he will not say. And he's, of course, Mueller has said publicly that he says his work speaks for itself and does not want to speak about this further. But they say this: nevertheless, the American public deserves to hear directly from you about your investigation and conclusions. We will work with you to address legitimate concerns about preserving the integrity of your work. We expect that you will appear before our committees as scheduled. So they have agreed. They say Mueller has agreed to a July 17th hearing in an open session. And we know, Chris, that the Mueller team has fought this idea of coming in public. Mueller has wanted to go behind closed doors. But now the Democrats have said, this is it, July 17th.
Now, why has Mueller fought the idea of appearing, before a court and testifying before the American people? Because he's going to be asked very uncomfortable questions, and he's going to have to answer them on penalty of perjury. Yeah, this is getting very interesting. Very interesting. Let me just slide over here for a second. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we were still recording because Sammy bit through this cord last night, and so I wanted to be sure that it is recording still, that it hasn't shorted out. And it is. So we're all good to go. All right, let's go back here and let's go on. Now, going back to what we were saying about the UN banning anti-Islam speech or anything that is offensive to Islam. Let's see how Ottawa just right up and immediately responded to that because, well, Justin Trudeau, or Justine, as I like to call him, he makes it very clear that he is pro-Islam, that he's very supportive of the Islamic community, gives a lot of taxpayer money toward it, and is not so hip about, not so accepting or promotional of Christian values or what Christians think, or insulting Christians, because he has said that Christians represent the very worst of Canadian society. How about that? And I just want to show you this because he's a friend of Soros. He is right in there, friend of the Clintons, has given much money to the Clintons. And let's look at what he's doing. Ottawa unveils anti-racism strategy, which includes definition of Islamophobia. Well, we would expect Canada, which is so pro-globalist, it's not even funny. It's amazing. This is the closest thing to socialism I think you can get without being actually socialist. Ottawa, the federal government has released a new anti-racism strategy that promises $45 million to fight systemic discrimination through community programs, public education campaigns, and combating online hate. The 3-year strategy, unveiled in Toronto on Tuesday by Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez, fulfills key recommendations from a parliamentary study that arose from a controversial anti-Islamic motion, M103, which concluded last year. The new plan, first announced in Budget 2019, includes a definition of Islamophobia taken from the Ontario Human Rights Commission, but otherwise seldom names individual minority groups that are frequent targets of discrimination, instead referring more broadly to radicalized communities and religious minorities. Well, Christians in Canada are quickly becoming a religious minority. It is considered by definition a heathen nation now, not a Christian nation at all. And Christians are openly discriminated against in Canada, and have been I mean, even when I left Canada, and went to the US, where I spent most of my adult life, it was that way back then. Because pretty much I had to take off anything like any missions experience or anything that might allude to the fact that I was Christian in order to get a job, and had to keep my mouth shut because I was working for the police. So anyway, so let me see here. While we take pride in being a welcoming and inclusive country, yeah, a little too inclusive if you ask me, and that should worry Americans. It really should, because I know we're all focused on the southern border, but what about the northern border? It's just as porous, and they can get into Canada very, very easily and drift down. Anyway, Rodriguez said in a statement, this national anti-racism strategy is an essential first step in building a more inclusive country where all Canadians can participate equally, unless you are Christian. MP says feds stall promise to act on anti-black racism 1 year after Trudeau pledge. Federal government consulting on national anti-racism strategy behind closed doors. M103 report makes few recommendations about Islamophobia. The strategy promises $4.6 million to establish an anti-racism secretariat within the Federal Heritage Department that would lead a whole of government approach in addressing racism and would report publicly on its results. It commits another $30 million to community-based projects focused on reducing barriers to employment and participation in sports, arts, and culture. It promises further investments in a national awareness campaign and to improve data collection regarding racism and discrimination. Now, I have never, in this area, it is a predominantly white area, but if you go a little bit to the east to Kingston or a little bit to the west to Toronto, you have very, very diverse cultures. And it was a lot, pretty diverse back even when I lived here originally, and a lot of Chinese, and I don't see discrimination there. In fact, most people welcome them because they blend into the culture, they assume the culture, they add to society, and they pay their taxes. They are only a positive influence as far as I'm concerned. And we have some blacks, but I've never experienced or even heard anything racist in Canada. Now, maybe I'm out of touch. Maybe it really does exist. And maybe in some of the larger cities like Toronto, there is now racism. I don't know, but it was never an issue when I was growing up. I just never heard any derogatory remarks. And the only one derogatory remark I heard in all of my time up until I left Canada was someone making fun of an Eskimo, a native Canadian, an Eskimo. They were making fun of her and they were calling her Eskimo. And that's the only time I ever heard. And I was outraged. And actually, it was on a school bus, and everyone else on the school bus was outraged as well and put a stop to it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just out of touch, and maybe I haven't seen what's really happening here. But that's my opinion based on my own experience. So anyway, let's go back here. We've got more to get into, lots more. I liked this as well. Excuse me. That's funny. I didn't know a Republican president could be impeached for crimes committed by Democrats. Well, none of us knew that either. Mr. Trump, President Trump, none of us knew that either. But apparently, according to the Democrats, they can. You can be impeached for somebody else's crime. Well, according to them. And who listens to them? Not nearly as many people as they'd like to have you believe do. Really. There's much less of them than there are us. Really. I know it doesn't seem like that. At times it does not seem like that, but it's true. It's just the mainstream media distorts it beyond all recognition and makes you think that this is how the rest of the country feels, when it isn't. It clearly isn't, or Donald Trump would not be sitting as the president, right? Anyway, let's go on now. I'm going to leave this one right here, because it's a bit longer, and I will get to it at the end if we have time. If not, I may have to save this for another time, but I do want to get to this because people have been saying this, and I've listened to it. But when I saw the actual clip, it told me everything I needed to know. Okay, so we know that this whatever her name is, that has basically accused Trump of raping her in a Bergdorf department store when there was nobody around, which is when? Never. And that he he was looking for lingerie for his then wife, Marla, and had wanted her to try it on. Now, what woman would fall for that anyway? Yeah, try on this lingerie, just so that I can see what it's going to look like on her. I don't think so. And so, yeah, she tries it on, and then he forces himself on her. But, you know, of course, she doesn't know whether he was all the way in, and she doesn't know if he ejaculated. Anyway, where does she get such a story? Huh? Well, let's see. Let's see where she got that story. And this is Special Victims Unit. I used to watch that all the time. Now, hang on here. Stop this. It says, no way. This by Mindy Robinson. No way. Trump's clearly unhinged accuser claims he raped her in a Manhattan Bergdorf dressing room. It's literally the plot line to an old Law and Order episode. Well, it's actually Special Victims Unit episode. And let's look at the little clip from this episode. I think you'll find it quite enlightening.
Yes, there was one, a bit plain, and it was not her fantasy, it was mine. Okay. Yeah. Role play took place in the dressing room of Bergdorf's. While she was trying on lingerie, I would burst in. Hold on. Man. Uh-huh. When did you and she have your date? 6 weeks ago, maybe. She wrote back.
Isn't that interesting? In this little clip, you see that this guy is describing having a fantasy about a woman in lingerie, trying on lingerie in the dressing room, and he breaks in and forces his way in and forces himself on her. Sound familiar to anyone? And guess where they were? Guess where this took place? This is, you know, according to this little clip, at Bergdorf's, Manhattan. Yeah, how do you like that? Yeah, I thought so. Doesn't that just show you everything you need to know? I mean, really, just watching the clip of her with Anderson Cooper tells you everything you need to know. And then she goes, "Oh, you're really fascinating to talk to." Really. Oh, and the other thing, she claims she had never had sex since, but she's been married twice. How does that work out now? How many men do you think would marry a woman that they knew would never have sex with them ever? Seeing as that is a very vital part of marriage, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. So she's obviously lying, or she didn't have sex with 2 husbands. Don't get it. I don't get it at all. All right. Well, I do get it actually, because she has a book out. She wants to sell that book. I hope Trump sues her. I really, really do, because she deserves it. And it might send a message to other people that are thinking the same thing. Oh, I could say this and get money. Yeah, I think she should be sued. All right, now to Breitbart, which is a much better website than Darkbart. I don't know where that came from. Breitbart, Darkbart, never mind. It's my very strange sense of humor. Financial blacklisting, sleeping giants and Soros-backed group pressure MasterCard to censor the right. So the financial blacklisting is occurring, and we've known that. I've reported on this before, that it's not just that we're being blacklisted on social media, Twitter, YouTube, what have you, Instagram. But yeah, they're wanting to blacklist us financially as well. A coalition of far-left political activist organizations known for peddling smears about conservatives held a protest at MasterCard's annual general meeting, AGM, today, aiming to pressure the international credit card giant to financially blacklist wider sections of the political right. The group's proposal to form a human rights committee did not sway shareholders who voted the measure down. At MasterCard's AGM this morning, the far-left groups, Some of Us and Sleeping Giants, circled the venue with a mobile billboard stating putting hate groups out of business. According to a press release published by the two organizations, this was coupled with a speech from Sleeping Giants co-founder Nandini Jami addressing the needs for MasterCard to take swift action by cutting off its services to these hate groups. Sleeping Giants, whose founders initially refused to take accountability for the organization's words and actions by remaining anonymous, was set up in 2016 by far-left political activists with the sole stated purpose of defunding Breitbart by spreading lies about it. The identity of its other founder, former advertising professional Matt Rivets, was revealed last year. Sleeping Giants coupled these smears with targeted social media harassment campaigns against corporations whose ads appeared on Breitbart News. Over time, Sleeping Giants expanded its target to encompass any conservative media with which its organizers politically disagree, including Fox News shows like Tucker Carlson Tonight, The Daily Caller, Dennis Prager, and The Daily Wire. Some of Us is purportedly a human rights activist group that now campaigns to make speech with which it politically disagrees unprofitable. A little comma there would help the readability, I'm just saying. Its website lists a number of powerful left-wing foundations among its partners, including George Soros, Open Society Foundation, the Tides Foundation, the Media Democracy Fund, and the Rockefeller Brothers Foundation. Earlier this year, Some of Us presented a proposal to MasterCard shareholders calling on the company to establish a human rights committee that would monitor payments to the far right. The protest aimed to pressure MasterCard to accept the proposal. Shareholders voted down the proposal this morning despite the protest. Over the past few years, the rise of the far right has wreaked havoc around the world, terrorizing and harming marginalized groups, wrote Some of Us in its press release. So I'm going to skip down here because this is long, but let's go to the sum up. The CEO of Bank of America recently stated that he supports the trends from a pure operating cost perspective, as it would allow the bank to spend less on moving checks and cash around the company, but beyond this relatively benign motivation, a cashless society would also allow a handful of corporations to control access to the financial system and potentially cut it off from those deemed politically or socially undesirable. This is precisely the kind of financial blacklisting that Sleeping Giants loudly demands from MasterCard. Now, and it's interesting because up here it says, even liberal groups have sounded the alarm about this trend. In July last year, the Electronic Frontier Foundation warned that banks, credit card companies, and payment processors are becoming de facto internet censors, which they are, because many of the payment processing for sites which many may not agree with, like Godlike Productions Forum and Alex Jones, and there's others, they've just taken away their ability to process payments. So putting them out of business. I mean, now Alex Jones is not out of business. He's large enough to, survive that. But, it doesn't matter if you agree with these sites or not. They shouldn't have that ability. And that's what Breitbart is complaining here. And it says, combined with corporate controllable cryptocurrencies like Facebook's, of course, Facebook has now come out with a cryptocurrency. I'm going to state Far away from that. Facebook's Libra coin, corporate America increasingly references the rise of a cashless society. And so does the Bible. The Bible tells us very clearly that in the end times, we will have a cashless society and all trading will be done via a mark or a chip in the right hand or the forehead. So, but this is Breitbart's concern. Because beyond this relatively benign motivation, a cashless society would allow a handful of corporations to control access to the financial system and potentially cut it off from those deemed politically or socially undesirable. And we know that's what's coming. We won't be able to buy or sell without that mark. The mark of the beast is what it's referred to. And that will hold your financial information and probably all your health information and identification. And if you are not in that system, you will not be able to buy and sell. Quite alarming that we see this right now, that we are moving toward that rather. Okay, let's go back because you know what? I've got more. Yes, I do. Now, this from Charlie Kirk. Did you know Google employees gave $1,315,000 to Hillary Clinton in 2016? Why, yes, Charlie Kirk, I did know that. Google employees' contribution to Donald Trump, $0. Right, I didn't know that. Are we supposed to believe Google didn't rig their search results to interfere in the 2016 election? Investigate. I agree wholeheartedly that should be investigated. Now, let's go on to this. No, really, let's. Because I want to show you something. Now, I know somebody had responded to me via the comments in the last video that this woman is not the editor of Vogue. And indeed, she is not the editor of Vogue, because the editor of Vogue is a much looks a little bit more presentable and has her name is Anna Wintour. So that is the editor-in-chief of Vogue. However, this woman is also an editor. She is the editor of the fashion part of Vogue, or at least a contributing, says meet on Tuesday, Vogue magazine contributing supervisor Lynn Yeager. And that is who this is, the one that we showed you that criticized Melania Trump. And indeed, she did. Like, that is not made up. She did. Supervisor Lynn Yeager took shallow swipes at First Lady Melania Trump in the social world wake of Hurricane Harvey. Now, this is like a couple years old. This is from 2017, but I found this and it's very pertinent. Yeager, an asserted form master, was exasperated by the tropical. This person doesn't know how to write. Exasperated, it should be, not exasperates, by the tropical storm stilettos Mrs. Trump wore on her approach to help the casualties of Houston. However, Yeager herself begrudgingly conceded the First Lady would change into tennis shoes when she touched down in the attacked state. Shouldn't be the attacked state, but the state of Texas, the Houston storm. And remember, she flew out there and the big hullabaloo about her shoes, which she changed to tennis shoes on board. But, she was criticized for that. At the beginning of today, Ms. Trump boarded Air Force One wearing a couple of transcending pointy-toe snakeskin heels, more qualified to a shopping evening on Madison Avenue or a young ladies' lunch meeting at whatever, whimpered Yeager, while the country is bolted by pictures of thousands of Texans swimming with their belongings, their pets, their children in chest-high water, frantically looking for asylum. While an administration official suggests that the individuals who demand protecting set up compose their names. Okay, I can't even read this. It's so badly written. But this is her. Now, I don't actually think that she called Melania a fashion disaster. I think that is false news, false reporting, because I cannot find anywhere where she did that. And after this person called me out on this, I wanted to investigate this so that I could bring you what is, in fact, the truth. And the truth is, she is a contributing editor to Vogue for fashion. She's a fashion editor. So she is. Her name is Lynn Yeager. And she did, in fact, criticize Melania Trump, but it was for her choice of shoes. But in looking at this, should this woman tell others about fashion? It looks like she shaves her eyebrows. She's got 2 pink dots here, I guess for blush, and her lips. Who the heck knows what's going on with that? Because nobody on earth has lips like that except her. And here she is in high fashion, supposedly with an Amelia Earhart flying cap. Yeah, so there. So that's it for that. I wanted to correct that. Yes, she did indeed criticize Melania Trump's appearance, but not quite the way it was presented in what I showed you, which I got online, which is false. But there was enough truth in there. So there is some truth in there, but yeah, she is a fashion editor at Vogue. Yes, indeed she is. So the person that said she's not an editor was wrong. She is. She's just not the editor. All right. So now that we got that cleared up, let's go on. No, really, let's. Now, since time's getting a little short here, I want to see what I've got and make sure that we get to that which we need to get to. Oh, and yes, because this kind of ties in with Google reteaching us what is acceptable. Look at this. Google's new media literacy program teaches kids how to spot disinformation and fake news. And what's disinformation and fake news? Anything conservative. Well, you know that. You knew the answer to that. Oh, come on. Yeah, it was a little pop quiz, but it wasn't a very hard one. Google announced this morning it's expanding its 2-year-old digital safety and citizenship curriculum for children, Be Internet Awesome, to now include media literacy, specifically the ability to identify so-called fake news and other false content. The company is launching 6 new media literacy activities for the curriculum that will help teach kids things like to avoid a phishing attack, what bots are, how to verify the information is credible, how to evaluate sources, how to identify disinformation online, spot fake URLs, and more. The new media literacy classes, which frankly some adults should read through as well. Well, thank you. Thank you for suggesting that, but I think I'll pass, if you don't mind. Was developed in collaboration with Ann Collier, Executive Director of the Net Safety Collaborative, and Faith Rogo, PhD, co-author of the Teacher's Guide to Media Literacy and a co-founder of the National Association for Media Literacy Education. So you see, this is going to start when kids are very young, teaching them to identify with what is fake news. Us, we're the fake news. That's what's going to happen. And you see that happening. Like Google is already, it's very frustrating to do any research on Google. And I, for the most part, have just given up and gone to DuckDuckGo and other search engines because I've given up on Google because it won't give me the information I want. If I want to find something that they think that I shouldn't be looking at, and I'm not talking pornography or anything as distasteful as that. I'm talking about information on perhaps 9/11 or just things of that nature. Well, if you go looking on Google, good luck, because you will get the company line. You are going to get the acceptable narrative, and they will tell you what that acceptable narrative is, and that's all they will give you to read. So I've just given up doing any research on there at all, because it's totally biased. And thank you very much. I don't want somebody telling me what I need to look for and what I need to believe. I don't like being propagandized. That's why I don't have cable. Why should I pay somebody to pump propaganda into my head? It wastes my time. It wastes my money. There's nothing good that comes out of it whatsoever. There's nothing worthwhile to watch. And that which is worthwhile to watch, I can usually get on the internet. There's all sorts of free documentary sites, by the way. Just go to DuckDuckGo or whatever and type in free documentaries. And there are whole huge sites with zillions. There are zillions of free documentaries out there that you can watch, things that are educational, things to expand your mind instead of shrinking your brain cells, watching what they pass off as entertainment now. It's entertaining, all right, but I don't want to be entertaining the things that it wants me to entertain. All right, so there you go with that. And let's just see if there's any other little things I can get to. Okay, and of course, we touched on this yesterday about Google infusing political agenda into their products, their search engines and so forth, to prevent Trump re-election. And it was even caught on tape by Veritas. They were caught on tape saying, oh, yeah, we do that because we want to, prevent another Trump. Yeah, well, who are they to say who we can elect as our president and who we are not to elect as our president? Really, do we want Google? Do we want Facebook to decide who our presidents will be? Because that's what they're doing, and that's what they want to do, and that's what they admit that they're doing. And we're letting them. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to end, to tell you the truth, because, I thought things would get a lot better under Trump. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of things have gotten much better under Trump. We've got a great economy. There's more people working. There's a lot of positive things that are happening under Trump. But there's also this huge push towards censorship. And it's not censorship across the board. It's just censorship of opinions they don't like. They're not harmful opinions. They're just different opinions. But that, according to them, you can't hold different opinions. You must groupthink. Everyone must groupthink. Yeah, it's like we're all part of the same brain. That's what they want. They want us all networked together like little neurons in the brain, all thinking the same, all pulling together, and they call it unity. There will never be unity. There will never be peace on this earth, aside from Christ. That is my opinion, and I can respect anyone that doesn't feel that way. Totally. I can respect you as a person. I can appreciate your opinion, but that is not my opinion. And it's funny because they want us to be tolerant of them, but they are not tolerant of us at all. So I think that's going to be it. Now, yeah, I think that's going to be it because I'm actually, and I had spoken this in the video from last night, I was going out for supper, a family supper, and that's why I did this a little early, because I wanted to be sure that I got it done. And I'm really trying to prevent situations where I don't get the video done. Now, once in a while, I may take a night off because it does help me to just get away from the news and concentrate on something a little more positive, because, garbage in, garbage out. And I do want to keep filling myself up with good things, and by that, I mean listening to classical and good music, reading the word, listening to, good documentaries, things like that. So, and I would suggest that you guys do that as well. Just a suggestion. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but it does help to get away, to listen to something that is uplifting, to spend some time out in nature, play with your animals, do whatever makes you feel good about yourself, and that there still is a little good in this world, and there is. And you know how I know? Because of all of you. I mean that. I'm not trying to pander to anyone or false praise or anything like that. I mean that because I see the good in the people who comment on these threads. You pray for one another, you encourage one another. There's no backbiting. There's no, really crude remarks. It's wonderful to see. And it gives me hope. It really gives me hope that, you know what, there's still good people in this world. There are. So anyway, that's it. And I may, and I do put the emphasis on may, be back later and report, but I do want to make sure that I get up to date on the Democrat, whatever they call it, debate. That's what they call it, debate. So I want to get up to speed on that, and I want to concentrate on that tonight. But if I'm home early enough, I may do another short video, but don't count on it. But I may. All right, so that's it. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, because you are, and keep seeking truth, because Sammy bites. No, I mean deception bites. Good night.